Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Goa Ahead. In this episode, we are going to look at the mood of the state. What is the mood of people of Goa? What are they thinking? Are they happy with this government? Do they want change in government? What kind of MLA would they prefer? And what are the qualities they want to see in their MLA? We asked these questions to a number of people with one of the biggest sample size in the state of Goa. And we came up with some really interesting findings and observations. So joining me in the studio, the man who worked with us in getting these findings and observations out, Professor Nilesh Borde from Goa Business School of Goa University. Next, I have with me in the studio political analyst and lawyer, Advocate Radharao Gracias. Radharao, welcome. And joining me online is economist and political analyst, Professor Dr. Manoj Kamath. All of you, welcome to the show. Ask the people which party they think is best suited for the following: development, administration, employment, and curbing corruption. If you can have the graph on screen, Nilesh, please explain to us.
Yeah, so again, it's an extremely interesting graph that you find here, which is basically trying to show you which is the party suited for what particular type of an activity. And so if you notice, the kind of things that have been looked at have been development, administration, employment, and curbing corruption. Please understand that when we devised this instrument, basically to collect the data, we wanted to kind of give some sort of, we wanted to make our research perfect in order to figure out what are the kind of options that can be given to people, and at the same time we gave an open-ended option where people could write any other. But I think our people preferred looking at the kind of options that we had given, and at the same time, wherever possible, where they didn't want to opine, they have said NA. What does this graph basically tell you? The blue line that you can see in that graph is for this concept called as development. And so you have the graphs which have been done in the form of a government. So you've got BJP, Congress, and that on the x-axis. And what is getting measured in that are development, administration, employment, and curbing corruption. Right. So if you look at for anything which is related to something like development, people believe BJP is good. If you want, if they want to see something like administration, then in administration, strangely, but I have a feeling that people have now started believing that the existing administration is probably not as good as what it used to be under the Digambar Kamath government. And so therefore, if you notice, in terms of administration, Congress gets the priority and a cake. In terms of employment, they very strongly believe that nobody is able to give it, and so therefore, if you notice, Congress and Goa Forward and AAP and MGP and probably almost every single party gets approximately the same share of the pie. But as I said, people who go in the double digit are Congress, Goa Forward, AAP and MGP. In terms of curbing corruption, you can see it overwhelmingly skewed towards Aam Aadmi Party. And so that is how this graph basically projects itself.
This is very interesting.
Yes.
For development, people feel BJP is the best party suited for development.
Right.
For administration, people have voted very conveniently and convincingly for Congress. In terms of employment, nobody scores well. And in terms of curbing corruption, it is Aam Aadmi Party.
Pramod, just to give you this, even administration, Congress scores highest as 28.8%. But I'll tell you what, statistically speaking, in terms of numbers, the numbers look equally distributed across.
Yes.
So at the moment, at least they believe that everybody is the same.
Edge, it is not a substantial edge.
It is not a substantial edge, correct.
Radhabab, how do you look at this graph?
See, I mean, after all, these are merely graphs. Now, as far as corruption is concerned, AAP has an obvious choice because their whole stress throughout their campaign is that they have eliminated corruption.
Yeah.
They have been able to provide free services because by eliminating corruption, they have increased the government income. All these things, and people tend to believe that. And besides, there is not a single Goan who has not been hit by corruption. You go to any government office, you go to any police station, if you don't pay, nothing is done. Everything has to be purchased. So obviously people feel that a newcomer who is talked about as being non-corrupt would provide better administration, better government. Now administration, I think I would agree with this thing that Congress was better, because again the administration in Goa
But
now.
even that better is not very substantial.
No, relatively. It's relatively, because today there is no administration at all. See, as a lawyer, I can see that nowhere you go, anywhere, nothing is being done. Man. Nothing is working. No government offices are functioning properly. So to that extent, people do feel that the previous government may have been better. Now on employment, the problem is with the people. Everybody wants government jobs. You cannot have so many government jobs. And no government is going to create government jobs.
That's why everyone scores equally.
Yes, probably.
Manoj, how do you look at this graph? Very interesting graph.
This graph is very interesting, and it comes up with this obvious conclusions. The conclusions are very obvious. When it comes to development, BJP ranks higher because in last 10 years, Goa has seen unprecedented development like never before, whether it is roads, whether it's new bridges, new projects. And it is obvious when you have your central government at the center coming up with bounties. So normally you expect, or the perception is that you would be able to get centrally funded projects, and more developmental projects are in the nature of capital expenditure and centrally funded projects. So it's obvious it's BJP. But when it comes to administration, Congress scores better by looking at the face of the leader. As we have seen in the previous graph, it was Digambar Kamath who had scored highest or the second highest, leaving aside the chief minister. Though chief minister has good numbers, they were not really magnificent numbers given the strength what he has. But look at this. Pramod Sawant has been the chief minister for the first time. He never had a public office other than the speaker's office, which is considered to be not so lucrative office in terms of understanding and in terms of perceiving the caliber of administration. Digambar Kamath had been MLA for a longer term. He has been a former chief minister. He has proved himself as an efficient administrator in the past. Administration was fairly better. So therefore, when people look at Congress, they look at the leader who is heading this particular party, and owing to his experience, owing to his age, owing to his maturity, and owing to his past administrative acumen, he ranks much higher.
Okay.
But I'm surprised about employment. Even if you look at the employment figures or perception about employment, they may look similar, but if you look at those figures very minutely, Congress scores a little higher in terms of employment perspectives, because embargo on out of last 10 years, more than 6 years, there was an embargo on new employment generation in the government sector, and therefore people suddenly realize that in case of employment, it is not the BJP who has done significantly well. If we had to do this survey maybe 2 months hence, and when you see this, even some figures of this 10,000 promised government jobs are achieved, probably you might find a similar number. In terms of corruption, Congress and BJP are ranked at the same.
Okay, then we go to the next question, which is very important. We asked the people which has been the best performing government in last 3 terms. And I think this is very interesting. It is almost similar, but kind of tilted towards the BJP.
Correct.
So, Dilesh, please explain us the numbers, and then we'll try to decipher it.
So typically speaking, you have a BJP-led government which is scoring about 53% and Congress-led government which is scoring about 44%. You notice this kind of a thing happening basically. I mean, effectively speaking, if you ask me, it is basically being given as 50-50. Right, so I don't know whether it's a right platform to basically say it, but Atal Bihari Vajpayee had once upon a time said, that Kaurav kaun Pandav bada tedha sawal hai, or Raja koi bhi ho. He ends up his poem by saying Raja koi bhi ho, rang ko to rona hi hai. So it's typically like that. I think people have kind of given up hope on this thing, and so they are saying that I really don't have anything to choose from. Both have been the same thing, like how we call in Marathi ekach manetle mani. So it's typically being looked at more from that angle. Though somebody wants to take some sort of happiness or solace out of it, BJP-led government gets about 53% and Congress-led government gets about 42.8%.
Happiness of 3%. Rather than
yes.
What happens now? during these last three governments, BJP has had a government for 10 years. Therefore, they have had a longer period to prove themselves. Whereas the Congress had run the government only for 5 years. Besides the Congress government, BJP government has seen 4 chief ministers. It was Manohar Parrikar, then Parsekar, then Manohar Parrikar, and then Pramod Sawant. 4 chief ministers in 2 terms. So obviously they have had different phases. They might have acted differently. Something may have been done better or worse. But actually speaking, I would tend to agree with the people. You see, to me, looking at these governments functioning, or the last 3 governments, it is like, watching a 4th division football match from the stadium. Poor play, very poor players, no coordination, no scoring goals, nothing. And even on penalties, tiebreaker, all goals were kicked out. Such government we have been having for the last three terms. That is the way the voters seem to be saying, and I agree with them.
Manoj?
Radharao has said it very perfectly. Remember, out of those 15 years, Congress was in power only for 5 years.
Yeah.
Second, it is always said the public memory is short. So public might have very well forgotten the good deeds of the earlier regime, which was in the
And the bad deeds too. And the bad deeds too, Manoj.
in the 5 years and in the recent years, people tend to remember, people tend to see the developmental works, people tend to go with the good deeds of the government, and that is obvious that they probably should have ranked a little more higher than 53%. That is what I need to say. But then, in spite of this, after 10 years of BJP regime and having seen 4 chief ministers, if 47% of the people still feel that Congress's government was much better in last 3 terms, it means that the public perception is moving away towards the BJP. And in the entire survey, we have seen that BJP is facing something called as an very, very strong anti-incumbency factor.
As we move ahead, in next couple of months, because Manoj made a very interesting point. He said that the anti-incumbency is showing now. Correct. So as we progress, in couple of months, the 53% can be on the Congress's side and the 44% can be on BJP's side. Yes. So this is still a perception in progress.
Correct.
Okay. Then we go to a very interesting question, and that is, what is your most important expectation from the MLA? Now, I don't know whether people have truthfully answered here or not. We'll see the graph and then we'll go ahead. What is the most important expectation from your MLA? Yes, Nilesh.
Right. So, because I'm happy, Pramod, that you brought out this concept of social desirability, whether people were truthful or not. But I'll tell you what, the way we have designed it, I think it has been pretty decent, and therefore if you notice, people have really looked at it, and we've got a real perfect data, because if you had to go with social desirability, people would have answered questions like, quality of the candidate and things like that. But if you really frankly look at it, the kind of data that is coming up and that is being thrown up, if you notice, the rank 1 basically goes to something like giving jobs. So in these times, people are really looking at expectation from their MLA is basically to get jobs. And so that is one of the most important issues. It probably is also coinciding with the fact that the government has announced about 10,000 government posts. And therefore, a lot of people are now trying to tell the MLAs, probably through surveys like these, that look out, let us get a share of your pie of jobs, okay, for your constituency. And so one of the highest thing that comes to them is from giving the jobs. Then second thing that comes to people is from financial help. People are getting financial help. Now that's another problem that I see as a teacher around, a lot of young people standing outside the local MLA's office every stipulated day of a month, because they get cash. Now that's a very important thing, and that's another thing that people are looking at in terms of financial help. Another thing people are really looking at is in terms of getting the work done in the government offices. That also is basically a defeat of government, because if people have to really depend on their local MLA to get the work done in the government offices, I think it speaks strongly about the way the government offices
The
are at this
quality of
point, the
administration.
quality of administration and the quality of the government. And so these are very few people say that there are take up local issues in the assembly, but there's a very interesting point, Pramod, that people have, and that is settled disputes. So they also expect, I mean, I don't think there is going to be any other state, maybe it is because of the size of the state and because everybody knows each other here. It could also be because of that, but it's a very strange state where people expect a local political leader to come and settle their disputes. I think that's a
So jobs,
that's a very, very
financial
key.
help, work in government offices and settle
Absolutely,
disputes.
absolutely. And so if you notice rank number 3, so there are 3 graphs that would be there if it's a pie chart, and if it's a histogram, you would have all that clubbed in one. So if you notice them, you will notice that infrastructure is at rank 3.
Yeah.
So rank number 3 is what goes to infrastructure. So that's a very, very important statement that people have made. So people are basically telling the local MLAs, please come, give us financial help, please give us jobs, please settle our disputes, and please help us get our work done in the government offices.
Looks like more or less people have responded very honestly.
Very honest.
What do you say, Radha Babu?
No, this is precisely the problem with the voters and the people. They do not really know what a legislation is about. The term MLA stands for Member of the Legislative Assembly. Now, these people are elected to legislate. And this is something that the voter does not understand, that the voter does not realize. Because from good legislation flows everything. Now, if people want jobs, people want what you call financial incentive, this is not the work of an MLA. An MLA is supposed to perform in the house. It is a good government that provides all this. Government should create infrastructure, should bring in good administration, and should create jobs where people get them on merits. But today what is happening? You go to an MLA distribute jobs. This is what is wrong with the voters' expectations. That is why we have very poor people getting elected. The reasons for electing are someone gives a job, someone who can hardly speak a word, someone who can hardly read anything becomes an MLA. And then this is the problem. So people's perceptions are totally wrong. No MLA should be able to give a job. He should create jobs. You must get it on merit. So long as this does not happen, we will continue to have the sort of MLAs and sort of democracy which we have now.
Just to briefly come into what Rajarao Bab said, and that's what I was just telling you. Rajarao Bab, very frankly speaking, there are local MLAs who distribute money to their young youth.
Correct.
And that's
We all know
very
that. We all know
painful to
That's
see.
not, no, so you can't fault a MLA. I wouldn't fault a MLA. If that is what his electorate expects from him,
Exactly.
he would consider it as a political delivery. That is why he's getting elected. Manoj, how do you respond to that?
Yes, it's a very dicey thing. People expect private benefits compared to social benefits. That is what we have seen. And in smaller constituencies, where the size of the constituency is 35 to 40,000 voters, which is just equivalent to a panchayat level voting electorate in any other state, this is likely to happen. Here we don't expect your MLAs to come and raise your common issues, to talk about issues pertaining to the state, to talk about financial independence of the state, sustainable development plan of the state. Rather, you expect them to give you the job.
Manoj, only we do it in the studios.
Yes, that is the analysis. What is left to academicians like us and press men like you. But then actually the expectations of the people is what will I get at the end of the day. And then if we have voted a particular person, we think that we need to be taken care personally by our MLA. So MLA is more of a personal genie for all of us, rather than a public servant.
Pramod, but 1 second, I would like to disagree with you on this, that the politicians give what the voters ask.
Yeah.
I have a feeling somewhere that politicians too have understood the merit behind it. You know, by making the young demography of their constituency dependent on them. I mean, think about it. MLAs giving out 70,000 to a lakh of rupees, and now in the election time, even 2 lakhs for a Narkasur, which is going to be burnt in the night. And people vote for such MLAs or such people to become their MLAs.
I am very clear, Nilesh. The ideal of political delivery and people's idea of political delivery are two different things right now. They don't align anywhere. But that takes us to our next question. And that question is, what matters to you while electing your MLA? Now this is very interesting. First was the expectation. Now what people are saying, what matters while electing the MLA. Let's see whether they have been truthful here or we have been lied to. Nilesh?
Yeah, so I have a feeling that maybe because it's an election year, we find approximately a pretty decent way of answering. They believe that rank 1 is a political party to which they belong, and that probably is true, because then we are really talking about 36% to 38% vote share of BJP, about similar for Congress and things like that. And so political party, at the end of the day, the cadres of every political party probably do tend to play a big role. And so therefore you would notice that for 72% people, political party happens to be a rank 1. But from there on, you have a quality of candidate which comes as rank 2. To me, I think this is where people should actually be really focusing on. But unfortunately, I'm not sure, though the data very clearly states that they are rank 1 and rank 2.
You should be thankful,
for a large
at least
number.
it is a number 2.
At least it's a number 2, yes,
Be
correct.
thankful.
Correct. Then they look at past performances. But then I think there is a very important thing which I think kind of has come as a suppressed information, and that is religious affiliations. So you do find, and so again, I have a feeling that as a teacher, I very strongly believe that society listens to this and stops differentiating themselves on the basis of religion and caste, and not vote on that basis, rather than look at from the point of view of who is a good person for the state or for the country and not for their own self. But you have still a quite sizable sum which basically give percentage like 13.5% and all to financial help and personal benefits.
Which goes with our previous graph.
Which goes with our previous graph.
Radhabab, how do you respond to that? Looks like people have been very truthful.
Truthful, yes.
I really don't know. See what happens now, Pramod. The problem here is when they say that they are for political parties. If that were the case, then elections would have been cut and dry. Elections should have been, the 2-3 big parties should have shared all the votes. There are a large number of people who vote for smaller splinter groups.
No, what number 2, there is quality of candidates also.
Yes. No, but what I am trying to point out is, as far as you take what happened in the last term, people are for political parties. They elected 17 congressmen. And out of these 17 congressmen, some Viswajit Rane, Subhash Shirodkar and Sopte resigned from the Congress and got elected again on BJP ticket on the same constituencies. 10 of them defected from the Congress into the BJP. But there was hardly any public reaction. If you are committed to your party, should not have been vehement objections, vehement opposition to the 10 Congress MLAs shifting over to the BJP? Was there any objection? These are sort of people are just talking like that, man. But in reality, if it was so, the cadres should have been out in the streets. Nothing of the sort happened.
Okay.
I agree.
Very, very interesting. Manoj, how do you look at it?
Happy by looking at this graph that people really consider political party or the political symbol as important rather to individual as entity. And that's good for a democracy. Because in democracy, if everybody starts voting for an individual entity, looking at his characteristics and his merits, you would normally hung up with a system where we have individuals and not a bunch of individuals who follow common wisdom, who follow principle politics. So theoretically, it seems very good that people tend to look at the party or look at the political symbol, and that matters to them a lot. In places like Goa, we have consistently seen 3 to 4 independent MLAs getting elected every time, and that has been in history or smaller political parties. Now these are exceptions because 4 out of 40, even at maximum period of time, we had at once upon a time around 5. So 4 out of 40 would be around say 10%. 10% electorate electing, meaning only 10% of the total.
You are saying that's a fair percentage?
Yes.
Okay.
It's much less percentage. So it's a good sign that people are following political parties rather than.
Okay. Then we have a very interesting question as who, according to the people or the voters, is the worst candidate? Now that's a very, very, very interesting statistics. Let us look at it. Nilesh, please go ahead.
Yeah, so if you look at something like who is the worst candidate that you believe when you're trying to make up your mind for voting. Again, as I said, we kind of made a lot of research on this and tried to figure out what is it that people could be really looking at. And I don't know why, but I personally find a result a little more contradicting each other from the kind of data that we've got before, because people believe that the worst candidate is a person who is corrupt. So we looked at what are the parameters that we looked at. We looked at parameters like corruption. We looked at whether the person has a criminal background, whether a person is communal, who tends to divide the society on the lines of religion and matters like that. Politicians' family member, basically, because we have been now
Dynastic
constantly
politics.
talking about dynastic politics.
Yeah.
Correct. Defectors, low performers. I mean, these are some of the parameters that we gave. But I'll tell you what. Overwhelmingly, number one rank went to corruption. So people say that that's the worst thing that can ever happen in a political candidate. Now, according to them, he is the worst candidate. Okay, but unfortunately, if they say that a person who is corrupt is the worst candidate, and then getting up and saying that I look at MLA from the point of view of the kind of personal benefits he gives me, what people need to understand is that none of these MLAs are basically reincarnation of Mother Teresa who try to selflessly serve the society. These are people who are into the business of politics, and they tend to give money to people, or they tend to give benefits to people on a personal level as a part of their investment.
Radha made a nice statement during
Yes.
our last debate. He said that when voters become commodity, it takes a very huge toll on democracy.
Absolutely.
What is the number two?
Number two is criminal.
Yeah.
Criminal record of a politician. And then you have number three rank being given out to something like a low performer.
Okay.
So low performer is a number three rank that has been given with a 37.5% rating. It has number three rank.
Yeah. Radha,
I think the public who has responded is dishonest. Completely. I mean, I really feel so. You see, what happens is, to say that they will not elect a corrupt person, you see, if you just make a survey and just casually find out who are the 10 corrupt MLAs in Goa, and you'll find, they will name 10 persons, and you'll find each of them has been elected, re-elected and re-elected. So how do you account for that? We all know it's happening. Now, so if you don't want a corrupt person, how do you re-elect him? See, this shows that the voter, either these answers are just given cursory or for the sake of giving, or the voter is dishonest. I don't believe the voter on this. Not sanctimonious.
Although he is not, he wants to sound sanctimonious.
Maybe he just wants to show that he is honest.
Yeah.
That is not the case. It is the dishonesty of the voter that makes for corrupt MLAs, because the voter expects the MLA to meet all his small needs. Every need of his, the MLA is supposed to make. Where will the MLA get the money from? MLA has to then take money from contractors, has to take money from commissions from this, commissions for that, or sell government things with an undercut. This is what is happening.
Manoj, Nilesh, Radha, thanks a lot for joining me. And this was our very humble and honest effort to look into the minds and hearts of people of Goa. And what they have said, and to a large extent, very honestly and truthfully, is that although they are looking out for a change, they have no idea right now where the consolidation is happening. Probably in months to come, we shall know. But for today, this is what is the mood of Goa. Nilesh, Radha, Manoj, thanks a lot for joining me. Keep watching Goa.
Thank you, sir.